So what is the Human Development Index? It's a tool designed by the United Nations to measure the economic and social development of a country. It's a single statistic from 0 to 1. Closer to 1, the higher level of human development experienced. It is basically broken down into 3 dimensions and 4 indicators. The 3 dimensions are health, education, and living standards. The 4 indicators here are life expectancy at birth, mean years of schooling, expected years of schooling, and gross national income per capita. The indicators are what are measurable, and we use averages within a country to generate the HDI statistic. What all those indicators mean here have been summarized. If you want to stop the video and read through them again, you should have gone over these previously in the course. What are the advantages of the HDI? The good thing about the HDI is it takes into account more than just average income. So it actually thinks about the health of the population by measuring life expectancy. It also looks at education levels. That's through the mean years and the expected years of schooling. The other good thing is it's a single statistic from 0 to 1, which means that it's really easy to compare progress of a country over time and also progress between countries. The disadvantages of the HDI is that unfortunately human development is a very big concept, and whilst there are 4 different indicators, there is lots more factors that affect human development. Things like freedom of speech, inequality, discrimination, access to water. All of those things are not only difficult to measure, but we know that they do impact human development. So we know the HDI, whilst useful, isn't a true representation of the human development of a country. It's also problematic because all those indicators are based on averages. They don't look for inequalities that exist within a country. So again, it's not a true representation of human development in that way. Things like females, those with a disability, those that live in rural areas aren't being considered when using this data. One other issue is that the collection of this data will vary from country to country. How they collect data, the reliability of their methods, all of that will vary. So whilst it is useful to use this tool to compare countries, that's not completely accurate. So that is one limitation of using the HDI. I'm now going to progress into some exam style questions. As I move through, I'd suggest pausing the video on each question, having a go yourself, and then I'll unpack your answer. So this one from the 2018 exam, which is very common, is basically outline, describe, discuss the Human Development Index. It's a similar question every time, and you're basically just regurgitating what is the HDI. Often these range from 1 to 2 marks and nothing more than that. I've taken the information from the 2018 exam. So this high scoring response here. So the HDI is a tool developed by the United Nations to rank countries based on their social and economic development. That line there would get you 1 mark. Then it is based on 3 dimensions. This is old for 2019. This is old for 2018, sorry. That has been recently changed. So it was as it is earlier: health, living standards, and education, and 4 indicators which are still the same. That there, I always say to my students, is I know it's a lot of information, but you know that information, so include it. That's what gives you that 2nd mark, rather than just maybe giving the dimensions or just giving the indicators. You could also include in there, it is a single statistic from 0 to 1 if you want it to be super safe. Question 2, outline 1 advantage and 1 limitation of the HDI. So in this high scoring response, we've got the HDI is a more comprehensive measure of human development compared to other indicators such as GNI. I'd probably say that's a little bit brief. They haven't really explained what they mean there, and we know what they mean. It's because they include other things other than like GNI, as they say. They've got other things included such as mean years of schooling, life expectancy, so it gives a more comprehensive representation of human development. The limitation is that it is still based on averages, so it doesn't provide an indication of the inequalities that exist within a country. I would add an example there, for example, those with a disability. It's also really good that in this high scoring response, they've signposted advantage and limitation. That's a very good habit to get into for your assessor to know where your marks are being broken up into. Question 3. Besides the factors that are used to calculate the HDI, identify 2 characteristics common among countries with a low Human Development Index. So what this is asking you is not to use the indicators that are in creating the HDI. It's saying come up with other things that may impact the HDI. No, it doesn't. Okay, question 3. Besides the factors that are used to calculate the HDI, identify 2 characteristics common among countries with a low Human Development Index. So here it's not asking you about the dimensions or the indicators used to create the HDI statistic. It's saying to you, I've got a country that has a low Human Development Index. So think of all those indicators. It's probably going to have a low mean years of schooling. It's probably going to have a low life expectancy and a low GNI. And therefore, what kind of characteristics belong to that country? So think here of high, middle, low income countries. So we'd state things such as lack of access to safe water, gender inequality, poor housing, poor infrastructure, any of these here. The main thing is not to list things that are associated with actually measuring the HDI. So I can't say things like low education levels, low average incomes, because it's kind of too close to the indicators of the HDI. Question 4, Canada has a higher life expectancy than the USA, but the USA has a higher HDI. Explain possible reasons for this. This is a really common question. What they're saying to you is how can they have one of the indicators high, but then the country has a lower HDI overall? The reason for that is we know there's another 3 indicators used in creating the HDI. So those are likely to be lower, or some of them, not necessarily all of them. And you're just simply suggesting that. So in my response here, the expected years of schooling and gross national income per capita might be higher in USA than Canada, contributing to their higher HDI. Notice here that I put in bold the indicators. I'm signposting there to the assessor where my marks are. I'm also reiterating that I know that USA has a higher HDI and that those 2 indicators contribute to the HDI. Question 5, in 2019, the Human Development Index was 0.938 in Australia compared to 0.647 in India. A asks us, identify the likely difference in health status between Australia and India based on their respective HDIs. This is only 1 mark here. Now the key giveaway here is the fact that they've used the words health status. We know therefore that the only indicator relevant to health status in the HDI is life expectancy. If Australia's HDI is much higher, then we know that their life expectancy at birth must be also much higher than India. Question 5b, it's the same information that we were given before. This time they want us to outline 2 other likely differences between Australia and India based on their respective HDIs. This should be pretty straightforward given that Australia's HDI is a lot higher. I can use 2 of the other indicators. This time I've used GNI and expected years of schooling. It's important in these questions to use words like likely or probably because you don't know for sure if that's the case. Remember, there are 4 indicators, so which one's higher or lower, you don't know for sure. So just include words like that so that you're not being too definite in your response. Question 6, briefly explain how heart disease may impact the HDI for Australia. In this question, you're being asked to unpack how does heart disease impact one of those 4 indicators. Now you can look at this from a few different angles. Heart disease, for example, cardiovascular disease, we know causes death. That's therefore going to influence the life expectancy at birth. I could also say somebody with cardiovascular disease has to be on life-saving medication. This may impact their ability to work and therefore it's going to affect the GNI per capita. I'm unlikely to go with the expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling because heart disease is something that impacts people often a lot later in life. This would be a sample response. If people suffer from a disease such as cardiovascular disease, this may lead to death. This therefore could lead to a higher mortality rate and cause the life expectancy at birth to decrease. This would mean Australia's HDI would also decrease. So I've explained the impact on the HDI directly after I discuss life expectancy. I hope this video has been helpful. See you next time.